So I was at the grocery store yesterday and I was walking down the produce aisle and a lady walked up to me and said, "Can you believe that spring is right around the corner?" I said, "You've got to be chitting me." Today's episode, we're going to be talking all about how to properly chit your potatoes. So when it comes to growing potatoes, the first thing that you're going to want to get are seed potatoes. Now, seed potatoes come in a wide variety of shapes, sizes, and colors, depending on the variety that you get. Now, some seed potatoes are larger than others. The larger the seed potato actually is a good indicator of overall vigor and health. Just because you get a small seed potato doesn't mean it's not going to produce larger potatoes. It just means that the energy store, because a potato is essentially an energy store for a future season, it's a tuber, and all that energy can result in larger plants later on, but some varieties naturally are just going to have smaller potatoes. They do vary. This right here is a Yukon Gold. This is a Kennebec, a massive potato. This thing is huge, more like a football. And then this is a Idaho Russet, a Russet Burbank. This is a Russet Burbank. And then this is a Pontiac Red. Now, Redskins, obviously, it's much smaller. Redskins are a smaller potato. And you have a ton of different shapes and sizes. Like I said, none of them are going to be the same from one to the next. When you get your potatoes, it is best to let them sit in a humid but cold environment, cool, cold environment. I prefer anything below about 60 degrees. This is going to be dark and have a higher humidity than what is normally exposed to in your house. I like to wrap them in a paper bag because that traps that humidity from the potato. Because what you're going to do is you're going to start to force eyes. When you force eyes, this is normally when you look in your potato bag and say, "Look, my potatoes are going bad." That's a good thing. These eyes are future plants. Once you forced your eyes, that was about a week to a week and a half long process. They may already come with eyes forced. That's fine too. Then you can immediately jump to this step, which is chitting your potatoes. That's chitting with a CH, not an SH. And so when you're chitting your potatoes, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to divide them because every single one of these eyes is a potential plant. And if we were to take this whole potato and throw it in the ground, bad things would happen. A couple things you're going to need to chit your potatoes. One, get yourself a tray. Some people will use egg cartons. Some people will just use an empty tray like this and fill it up. If you're using a tray, fill it up with some pine shavings or animal bedding, something inert. You want it to be dry so it can wick moisture, because ideally what we're trying to do is we're trying to essentially dry off the fresh cuts from the potatoes, because we're going to be dividing our potatoes up into different sections, because you don't want to plant an entire potato like this. That also means you're going to want to grab a knife, a cutting board, and also is optional. If you would like to, you can use some powdered sulfur. Some sulfur dust is great to dust down your potatoes. That helps cut down on mold and rot, but it's not required. I have gone many years without using it. It just really depends on the growing season. Some years when it's really damp and really cold, powdered sulfur or sulfur dust can absolutely help to increase your overall success. And in other years, it's nothing but a formality and it ends up costing you time and money. So use it if you want. It's something that you're going to ask 10 people and you're going to get 11 different answers on whether you should use it or not. I've used it, I've not. I've had good results and I've had bad results. It's just, I think it comes down less on using it than it does how you grow it once it's actually growing. The sulfur powder is pretty inexpensive. You can buy it on Amazon, a little bottle of it, pretty cheap. So, might as well have some on hand if you want. Once you got all that stuff, we're going to start cutting our potatoes. So come on in close. It is really important that you know what to discard and what to keep when cutting your potatoes. First one we're going to cut here is the Kennebec. Now you'll notice this Kennebec here has a couple eye sights that have not fully formed yet. They will form at a later time. So we're not going to throw this out, but we don't need this right now. We're going to make one cut down the center of the potato because there's really no usable eyes here yet. They will come later. We're just going to set that aside. And we can put that back in a paper bag and let those eyes force. Once we've got our potato here, we're going to make some cuts because we don't need this entire potato. If we planted this entire potato, first thing that's going to happen is all this excess starch is going to increase rot and mold, and you're going to end up running the risk of killing your plant with rotten mold. So you don't want that much starch to a certain extent. Second thing that happens when you put this whole potato in the ground is you're going to have, just an absurd amount of plants in one little area here. The best way to have success with potatoes is not by crowding them. And this right here is going to be 1 plant, 2 plants, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plants. This little grouping of eyes here is just kind of a plant, if you will. Every potato will have what they call a major and a minor eye site. This is a major eye site. They usually have groupings of 2 or more eyes together. You can see over here with this one, this is the Yukon Gold. We have here a major eye site, and we have minor eye sites. There's a major eye site, a major eye site. There's some major and minor eye sites here on either potato. Over here you can see major eye site and a couple minor eye sites. So the major eye sites are just going to be a grouping of a few more plants, but they're treated like one eye essentially. And so we don't want 7 plants growing up right next to each other. It's not practical. So what we're doing is we're creating these wedges here with 2 to 3 eye sites per wedge. And that means this wedge right here is going to have 2 plants. It is cut on 3 sides. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to set this in our pine shavings so that they can dry and scab up, which will take between a week or 2 to fully scab over before we can plant it in the garden. So then this, if I wanted to, I could divide this up like that. I have a wedge here, 1 slightly formed, 2, 3. Got a really nice wedge here. And you don't want to take away too much potato either. Taking away too much potato can actually reduce essentially the food source that the potato is using to form. This is a carbohydrate source, an energy source for the plant to grow. And so we are going to want to leave some, if you just took this, I can take this one and just kind of demonstrate. If you took this and really just pared this down because you didn't want a bunch of potato, like you took all that extra off, sure. But I would venture to say you're probably going to regret doing that because you've taken away a lot of the energy store that this plant is going to use to essentially force growth and start to grow. Are you going to fail? No, but it's just not recommended. I probably would have left most of this on intact rather than take it off. All right, one more time here. We're going to find our part of the potato that has not fully formed yet. We're going to cut that off. We can let that sit. Now we're left with some spots here. I'm just going to divide them up, making my cuts here. That's nothing, that's waste. And I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I cut this here, you probably could get by with that because there's 1 eye. 1 eye on that much potato is probably fine. 3 eyes on that one. This eye site, this has got a lot of minor eye sites, so we can go here on a diagonal. So I'm going to essentially 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to divide that in half. Try to find the best way to divide those in half there, just like that. Now we've got 1, 2, 3 on this one, and for sure 1 and 2, and maybe even a third that fully forms. So that is the Yukon Gold. We're just going to set them in our dry pine shavings. You can use dry sawdust. You can use, like I said, egg carton, something that just has good ventilation. There's a lot of airflow that happens through these large wood chips. I've seen a lot of people using these, and so I decided to try it, and I did it last year, and I actually really liked it. I've used egg cartons in the past with great success. Only problem is we didn't have any egg cartons on hand, so I just threw these together, and it works out really, really well. Now, what's also great about using something sterile like these pine shavings is that it's not going to increase the risk of mold or rot or anything like that on your potatoes. It's really going to aid in that drying process because they tend to kind of wick moisture away, and because they're fairly inert, you're not going to have too many problems. Now, the final thing I was going to mention was you do want them exposed to air, but you do not want to set your eyes down like that. That is not great. You're going to pick a side. You still want your eyes facing up on all of your cuts, or mostly, you don't want them buried. You don't want them in the pine shavings when you make your cuts, because that will actually smother them out. That's really not great. Once we've got this tray totally full, we're going to make sure that there's adequate space around each potato. You want to make sure you have about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, sometimes even more than that, of space between each potato for adequate airflow in and around your cut potatoes. And the final thing is this tray, this whole tray, is going to simply get placed in a dark, warm environment. You want it to be dark, you want it to be warm, and you also want it to be fairly dry. You don't want a high humidity environment when you're trying to scab over your potatoes. And it's really, really simple. A lot of people kind of get stressed or worried they're going to mess something up. Seed potatoes and cutting your seed potatoes is an essential step in ending up with a better end product. Because when you pay top dollar for seed potatoes, for high quality seed potatoes, you might be paying $3 to $5, $6, or even $7 for a pound of seed potatoes, depending on the variety. And sometimes, like, this is a pound. So when you spend $3, $4 on this seed potato here, you want the best results from that seed potato so you get the most bang for your buck. This one potato, believe it or not, can yield 3 to 5 pounds of potatoes if grown correctly. And so it absolutely pays dividends to cut it properly, to take the right steps, rather than just take the lazy approach and just throw it in the ground. Because if you threw it in the ground, yes, you would absolutely get potatoes, for sure. I've done it, I've gotten potatoes. But the years that I cut my potatoes and properly divide them out and space them out in the garden and really do the right thing, the way that it should be done, I've always had better results, always, 100% of the time. And so it is very important to make that distinction. What is the most convenient is not always the best for us as gardeners to grow and learn. And chitting potatoes is something that people have been doing for centuries. And it is just a great way to get more potatoes, save money, and end up with better results. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know any questions you have in the comments box down below. I'm here to help you out. I'll be answering questions when possible, and I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, take care and grow bigger. See ya. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care. Bye.